All righty then. Why not welcome to the Young Turks? Why not welcome to the best news program in the country? Why not welcome to the truth? Let's just do it. Let's do it. It's Cenk Uygur. That's Anna Kasparin right there. A bit of a legend online, I guess.
Am I?
In the news community, I guess.
Let's relax a little bit.
Look, I don't even want to get into myself. I don't want to. Don't make me do it, okay? All right, look, we got a lot of news for you guys. And as usual, lots that are is disastrous. There's some that are fun. Some that are fun. Oh, Turk on Turk crime today. I take on a fellow Turkish American. Who is it? Is it Dr. Oz running for Senate in Pennsylvania? I don't know. It could be anybody. Well, not really anybody. There's like 5 of us in the country. But anyways.
I mean, there's too many questionable Turks to pick from. But
oh, shots fired.
There is one that we will be talking about today, okay? And his name rhymes with anus.
Well, don't give it away. Everybody knows.
Come on, his name rhymes with anus. Come on. All right, but we'll get to that later.
I don't even know that
no
it
offense
rhymes.
to the Turkish community. I hear that many Turks are named Enes.
Well, don't give it away. No, God, everybody thought I was going after Richard Bay.
I couldn't.
Okay.
Everyone thought it. Many people were saying it. Anyway, we're acting wacky.
We are, because we're slightly wacky and we have fun with the news. But the one thing we do different than everyone else is we actually give you the actual news, things that are true.
Yes.
So without further ado, let's take it away.
CNN did Democratic Representative Josh Gottheimer a solid in a segment which appears to just be positive PR for the corporate Democrat who is actively fighting against Biden's Build Back Better agenda. Now, was he challenged at all in this interview by Dana Bash? No. We're gonna show you a few clips and I'll fill in the blanks for you. Let's take a look at the first.
I think most people in the Democratic Party are somewhere in the middle or middle and left. Listen, Bernie Sanders lost, right? And that's not where our party is.
Bernie Sanders, a key player as this bill heads to the Senate, doesn't like those tax deductions that are popular here. Back in the car, Gottheimer mentioned Sanders again while talking about the state of the Democratic Party.
We're not into socialism, right? It's not in the Democratic Party. That's right. We are about pragmatic problem solving and people who can just get things done and work together.
Do you feel that you have to say we're not about socialism because you're being painted that way or because you're being polled that way?
No, because that's a reminder that we're not the party of Bernie Sanders. We're the party of Joe Biden.
Now, I thought that Dana Bash might counter or challenge what Representative Gottheimer is saying there by specifically pointing to the popularity of the original version of Joe Biden's Build Back Better agenda, which, by the way, is the bill that Bernie Sanders has been fighting to get passed. But it's been stripped down with the help of corporate Democrats like Josh Gottheimer. So why don't we take a look at what the country really feels in regard to that initial piece of legislation before it got stripped down, okay? CBS News poll, we're gonna give you a lot of polls. There's more than one. CBS News poll, as Kyle Griffin tweeted about on Twitter, of course, 88% of Americans support federal funding for lowering prescription drug prices, something that Gottheimer has been actively fighting against. 84% support federal funding for Medicare coverage for dental, eye, and hearing. 73% support federal funding for paid family and medical leave. 67% support federal funding for universal pre-K. By the way, this poll is not just about Democrats. This is about voters in general. So this means that even Republican voters found provisions in the original Build Back Better agenda before it was stripped down pretty damn popular. But Dana Bash didn't ask a single damn question about that or cite a single damn poll. I gotta give you more, Cenk. Let's go to this next one. 57% of registered voters said that the government spends too little on anti-poverty in the February 12th to 15th survey. This was, by the way, done by The Hill. 56% of respondents said that the same of healthcare and another 56% said that the country doesn't spend enough on education. We're not done yet, though. Here's another poll that was done by The Hill and Harris X, and it shows that the support for Medicare for all pretty damn high. Now, Medicare for All was not included in the Build Back Better agenda, but this gives you a sense, guys, of how popular these so-called socialist policy proposals and provisions happen to be. I would have loved to hear Dana Bash cite just one. But maybe, I don't know, we're talking about Gottheimer, who's in a vulnerable situation. He's in a district that had a lot of support for Donald Trump. So why don't we take a look at what polling in New Jersey's 5th district indicates? Nearly 9 in 10 voters, 86% in New Jersey's 5th district, think prescription drug prices in the US are too high, and 75% want to give Medicare the authority to negotiate lower drug prices, according to public policy polling. That wasn't mentioned at all, not even once in the context of that ridiculous pro-Gottheimer PR stunt that CNN pulled off there. Cenk.
Okay, so there's a lot of discussion about Chris Cuomo on CNN, and we're gonna do that later in the show. But it's really interesting juxtaposed to this segment here. They say, Chris Cuomo supported his brother, and that was outrageous breach of ethics of journalism. Okay, but at least he was honest and said, yeah, I'm supporting my brother, right? So in this case, CNN is not honest. It's not personal, guys. I've met Dana Bash. I think she's a perfectly good person, and I feel bad criticizing good people, right? But it's groupthink. And they all genuinely believe this giant ad for Gottheimer, who is maybe the worst corporate Democrat in the House, is normal. They don't realize it's an ad. They never criticize him. In fact, they take every part of the story and twist it in his favor. And I'm gonna show you how. Anna's already shown you some, I'm gonna show you others. And I bet you that there was not one discussion of all the producers, all the executives, anyone involved in that piece at CNN. Hey, is this right? This seems to be an enormous 5-minute ad for this one congressman, and frames everything in the light of so-called moderate Democrats are awesome, and they're bothered by these socialists who are ruining it for them in their districts. I mean, you could watch the whole 5-minute thing. It's unbelievable propaganda. And so now, what are the parts of the propaganda? She says these tax deductions that Gottheimer's fighting for here and Bernie Sanders is fighting against, well, they're popular here. You saw it in that clip, she said that. Wait, do you have polling on that? She might, but she didn't cite it. We always cite our polling because we don't want you to think that we're replacing what Americans think with what we think. It's what Fox News does all the time, and it's what CNN and MSNBC do all the time. They never actually give you the polling from the district or from the country. They just say, oh yeah, no, the moderate position is super popular. They never give any evidence, right? And the socialist position is no good here. Now, by the way, what the hell does socialist mean? Of course, they don't never explain that. They, not just in that piece, but ever on CNN. It doesn't mean a goddamn thing. It's just wordplay. Anyways, so now the facts. Now look, Gottheimer opposed nearly every provision that Anna just read you with overwhelming popularity. So Medicare negotiating drug prices, you just saw there, 75% popularity. It's hard to get more popular than that, right? And that was very clear. It wasn't just lowering drug prices. That particular provision for Medicare to negotiate drug prices, 75%. Gottheimer fought tooth and nail against that. Was that clear in the CNN piece? No, it made it seem like Gottheimer was in favor of Biden's agenda as opposed to Bernie's agenda. But that's actually not true factually, empirically. He watered down Biden's agenda at every turn. He fought the most popular provisions in Biden's agenda and made the bill, and in fact, we've given you this poll in the past. When the bill was at 3.5 trillion, it was enormously popular in the country. And then an amazing thing happened. When they cut it down to 1.75 trillion, what CNN always cheerleads for. Oh, they cut it. The country loves that they cut it in half, right? No, the polling indicated it lost massive popularity, and it went from very popular to under 50% once they cut the most popular parts, and Gottheimer did that. Gottheimer did that. That's a fact. So why does CNN de facto lie to you with a giant ad for Gottheimer that he didn't earn and that isn't factually based? We ask you guys to do accountability on us all the time and to double check what we're saying, double check the numbers and the facts. But unfortunately, neither right-wing media or corporate media ever actually cares about the facts. They just care about their agenda. Another example, Chris Christie Every station did a massive special on Chris Christie because he had a book coming out. Why? When have they ever done that for a progressive? So what corporate media does is honestly not really news, but marketing on behalf of corporate politicians.
The same poll that I cited from Public Policy also indicates that 40%, a whopping 40% of voters would be less likely to vote to re-elect Representative Gottheimer next year if he opposes legislation empowering the federal government to negotiate pricing on prescription drugs, which, by the way, he absolutely does. He has fought against that provision and he has succeeded in fighting against that provision. Among Democrats, 50% say they'd be less likely to back Gottheimer if he opposes the plan. So let me be clear about something. When CNN perpetuates this lie, this myth, this deception about how, well, what could Gottheimer do? I mean, he's in a district that's very competitive, a lot of Trump supporters in that district. What can he do? Trump supporters absolutely love the idea of being price gouged for pharmaceutical drugs, right? Except they don't. No American does, right? So the fact that they claim that Gottheimer is this milquetoast corporatist Democrat who fights against the best interests of his own constituents because he has no other choice but to do so is a lie. And the other thing that Dana Bash probably should have brought up is what the real motivating factors are behind the scenes for corporate Democrats like Gottheimer, okay? It's not because he's principled. It's not because he's a vulnerable Democrat from New Jersey's 5th district. It's because he's corrupt. Let's take a look at where he takes his money from, shall we? I think that this is relevant information. A little bit of context that a well-resourced outlet like CNN should probably get into, but they didn't. So if you look at numbers just from 2021 to 2022, okay, this is the election fundraising cycle for 2021 to 2022. Obviously that cycle isn't over yet. We haven't even hit 2022, but it doesn't matter. You look at how much money Gottheimer specifically has raised, okay? From securities and investment alone, over $500,000. Okay,
that's the bankers.
That's the bankers, of course. And then when you look at his top contributors, oh wow, golly gee, Blackstone Group is one of his top contributors. Blackstone, by the way, taking cheap money from the Federal Reserve, and instead of doing something that's beneficial with that money for ordinary Americans, what did they do? They invested that money in buying up single-family homes, the limited inventory of single-family homes, so they can then turn around and corner the rental market. Okay, that's what Blackstone is up to. But let's take a look at the entirety of Gottheimer's pretty short political career. Remember, he got elected into Congress in 2016. He has taken more than $3.6 million from banks, from Wall Street, in his short career from 2015 to 2022. Okay, Blackstone Group, of course, one of the top contributors, $220,000. But look, as I've mentioned before, when you see lawyers and law firms as the top industry or industries giving to politicians, it's basically donors giving through law firms in order to contribute dark money. That's how they do it. That's part of how they do it. So that's why you see over $1.6 million from law firms.
Yeah, so and that doesn't even include any of the dark money and all the PACs that are going to help Gottheimer, that are riddled with banking money, real estate money, drug company money, oil company money.
One more graphic actually from Open Secrets, because they break it down by industry, and it isn't shocking to me at all that insurance happens to be one of the top industries donating money to Josh Gottheimer.
And real estate there, as you see. Okay, so now guys, look. The main problem with CNN and all mainstream media, this is just a symbol of it, is that they take positions of Gottheimer, and he's just a symbol of it as well, that we can show you, and we have shown you, where you can connect the donations to his voting pattern about 100%, right? And certainly in every example we've shown you, he gets a huge amount of money and then he votes for that industry. Now, CNN claims, no, that's just a coincidence. Actually, they never even address it, because to them, talking about the corporate donations is heresy. Well, that would give away the game. That would let your audience know why politicians actually vote the way that they do. And apparently in the news business, you're not supposed to do that according to mainstream media. And it's, again, not just CNN, New York Times, so many others. They completely ignore the elephant in the room, all of the donor money. It's absurd that they never talk about it. Okay, but their excuse is, no, his views line up with the district. Well, Anna just proved to you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that's just not true. So what they do is, they do this trick, this con man trick, where they replace the word corporate with the word moderate. And they go, oh, look, oh, here it is, oh, they're moderates. They're the reasonable ones. The moderates are reasonable. Everyone else is unreasonable. There's a little snippet in that 5-minute segment of him where they're like, he's like, I'm just trying to bring people together. And they have a guy at a diner, he's just trying to bring people together. The middle is great, they don't explain. According to the polling, it is not the middle. It is not the moderate position, not in America and not in his district. So when you claim that he is a moderate, instead of actually telling your audience what he is, he's a corporate Democrat, well then you've in effect lied to them on a mass scale. And they do it all the time in almost all of their reporting. And that's why people don't trust them. And then they go, oh, I don't know why doesn't the right wing trust us? Why doesn't the left wing trust us? Well, I don't know why. Because you're a corporate media that does nothing but ads for other corporate politicians, etc. That's why you lost people's trust, because you weren't honest with them. And by the way, it's okay to have a perspective too. I don't mind that Fox News is conservative, I mind that they lie to their audience. So when we are progressive, we tell you that. So we did a similar story about AOC before she was in power, before she won anything. But we also criticize AOC. And we're also honest that we're progressives and we agree with AOC. But CNN never tells you they agree with all of Gottheimer's positions. They claim to be neutral and objective. And golly gee, they just happen to give millions of dollars in ads to corporate politicians and always criticize progressive politicians. But they're neutral. No, they're not. No, they're not. The whole thing's a sham.
All right, Joe Biden is weak. Some Democrats are hoping he'll stop being weak, but that ain't gonna happen. We'll give you the details on that and more when we come back.
Well, the Young Turks, the Friday show, it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna help us over here. Drop it.
We became the first ever daily online web television show.
No, the Constitution is the very core of America. The fact that we don't spy on American citizens, that we get a warrant, that we go to a judge, that we have a procedure, that we have due process, that is America.
On top of that, they go, why don't they just stay at their own schools? You gotta realize something. These schools suck. They want people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You ain't got no straps, you ain't got no boots.
He lit these fires in trash bins all around town out of frustration.
99th most viewed channel today on YouTube.
The Shorties Award.
Best web host.
We passed 1 billion views. Voice Award winner, news and information channel, The Young Turks. Oh, another Webby.
The Young Turks.
Can I curse? Yeah! For those of you watching on live stream, yes, we have adopted a pet iguana that showed up at our door.
The haunted version in the dark with our silhouettes.
Now let's get to the best line of the debate. And it was definitely the one against philosophy. I told you we were coming.
You talk about it when it becomes a problem. Our lack of gun control is a problem.
Nonsense BS story is hurting that cause, and they need to wake up and recognize that they are being had by these people.
Biggest gang in America. Question is, how do we make sure that we blame the person who is dead? What kind of democracy is that?
We should never forget that the most powerful people in the world exploited the greatest tragedy in American history to go to war in a country that had a lot of oil.
Rolling thunder. That's what this show is.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
We are a socialist country. It's socialism for the rich.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
You don't have to know the truth, just believe what they tell you.
There is no bounds to their monstrous hypocrisy. Tick-tock. I think we're gonna win the Senate in 2020.
And I think we're gonna have the House, and I think we're gonna have the presidency. TikTok.
And in 2020, we're going to clean your clock, and we're gonna run you out of town, and we're gonna have an actual democracy in this country.
November of 2020 could also be potentially the greatest day of our lives. Let us whisper of a dream.
Say hi to the camera.
I don't like this.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Go.
Democratic lawmakers would like President Joe Biden to stop being so incredibly weak in promoting his own economic agenda. In response to those concerns, I would say that Democratic lawmakers better get used to Joe Biden, who just vacationed in the home of Carlyle co-CEO Rubenstein's, nice little condo. Like he's not looking out for you. He's not looking out for his own economic agenda. He's not going to do it. Anyway, let me continue. I'm already giving you guys my opinion before I give you the details of the story. I can't help myself. So, apparently a number of senior advisors in the West Wing, including Chief of Staff Ron Klain, have at times urged Biden to embrace more partisan political combat and call out Republicans when needed, according to 3 aides not authorized to publicly discuss private conversations. Now, Robert Gibbs, who's a former White House press secretary under the Obama administration, has weighed in on this as well, saying that the president is in an awkward position because to get things done outside of reconciliation will require Republicans. But sooner or later, Joe Biden has to make this more than a referendum on himself and his presidency, and instead make this a stark choice between two very different ideas and philosophies. Contrast with Republicans' positions will be central to having a chance in the 2022 midterms. So Cenk, before you jump in, I just want to make one point about this. The framing of this piece, okay, published by Politico is, Democrats want Joe Biden to get a little more aggressive with Republicans, but he won't even get aggressive with members of his own party. So when it comes to passing his own agenda, the biggest obstacle for Biden hasn't been Republicans. It's actually been Democrats in the Senate. And he has not played hardball with them at all. Hasn't played hardball with Joe Manchin, has not played hardball with Kyrsten Sinema, doesn't intend on ever doing that, okay? Remember, we're not dealing with a situation in which Republicans have control of Congress. We're dealing with a situation in which Democrats have control of Congress. And if they wanted to, they could do away with the Senate parliamentarian, they could nuke the filibuster in the Senate. They could get a lot done if they wanted to. The question is, do they? And it doesn't look like it.
Okay, so the jury's in this article. They explain to you whether Biden is actually going to be strong and challenge Republicans. The idea of him challenging corporate Democrats is laughable. Anna's absolutely right. You got to first get through the corporate Democrats before you could even get to the Republicans. No one defends the Republican Party better than Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. And Biden allows them to defend it. He empowers and enables them to defend the Republican Party. Oftentimes he comes out and defends the Republican Party. We've shown you clips of him where he comes out and goes, I wish the Republican Party was better. I want them to be strong. I want them to be awesome. I want to work with them. I love bipartisanship. And look at them, they help with the infrastructure bill. Of course, totally corporate-backed bill that both parties, corporate wings would love. But he's like, oh, the Republicans were great. Republicans are great. Republicans are great. Pelosi comes out, oh, I want the Republicans to be strong. You're in the opposite party. I mean, we're not saying things that are radical or or even controversial. Even his own staff is saying, for God's sake, are you ever gonna fight? And the answer is absolutely not. Let me give you two telling quotes from this article. One is from John Podesta. I mean, there's no more connected person in Washington than Podesta, and he was the chief of staff for Bill Clinton. He was founder of Center for American Progress, was a huge part of Hillary Clinton's campaign. So he says, it's not in Biden's style to basically go after Republicans, and as they say, lambast Republicans. He says, I think for the president, it's not where he's comfortable. Okay, so we have the leader of the Democratic Party that, according to his own allies and friends, is not comfortable fighting the other party. Well, that's a giant disadvantage for the Democratic Party.
So
not
weird.
A little one, a giant one. Let me get to the quote number 2, because it is even more pertinent and more problematic. So this is graphic 3. Kate Berner is the deputy communications director. So they're asking her, she's on the record, so she's speaking for the White House here. She wrote or said, Berner cautioned that Biden was not going to take pot shots at the opposing party just for kicks. And she said, quote, being president is different than being an MSNBC commentator. Okay, now that right there tells you all you need to know about how dysfunctional and clueless the Biden administration is. First of all, MSNBC commentators are incredibly soft. If all you did was MSNBC commentator level, you'd still get rocked. I mean, they're whispering and gentle and polite and civil, etc., while Fox News is ripping Democrats' face off, right? But that's the least of the problems in that quote. That is the White House saying, no, he's not gonna fight. It's not like being an MSNBC commentator, okay? We're above it. We're above it. That's what Obama did. And you know how many seats we lost in the Obama term? In those 8 years, we lost about 1,000 seats nationwide at every level. National, state, and local. We lost 1,000 seats because Obama was above it. But when they go low, we go so high, we float away in the clouds. And now Biden says, I learned that lesson where Obama was selfish and got 2 terms. I want to get 2 terms, and I think, I'm from the 1990s, and I think that hugging Republicans is the way to get elected. And I was lucky I ran against Trump, and I got elected with this weak ass message just because I was running against a literal monster, right? So I think I'm gonna do it again. And if it destroys the Democratic Party because I'm not fighting for you, well, I'm not a commentator. I'm the president. And so I will be clean and I will stay above the fray, and the rest of you will suffer at my feet because I chose not to fight for you.
I mean, dude doesn't even have the energy necessary to stay awake during international conferences. I'm sorry, but when you look at where we are today, where the state of the Democratic Party, the fecklessness of the White House, you can't help but think back to the Democratic primaries in 2020 and all the lies that were sold to Democratic vote. We got to elect Biden. He's the most electable. Biden's the one who knows how to strike deals with Republicans. It's the art of persuasion. Biden is so persuasive.
Wow,
Please.
Absurd.
His only political record in regard to working with Republicans was just conceding to what right-wingers wanted. Again and again, bankruptcy bill, crime bill, the list goes on and on. I mean, we knew that it was a lie, but now it's playing out in real time. And the excuses that we're hearing from the people closest to him, what we're seeing happen to this stripped down Build Back Better agenda, which by the way, is still pretty unlikely to pass even after being stripped down to this point. I mean, it's all a joke. And by the way, I'm really glad that Robert Gibbs, former White House press secretary under Obama, is now giving us advice, giving the Biden administration advice on how he needs to fight back against the GOP. Please, I mean, come on.
And later in the article, there was even more quotes from donors, and the donors are the most important thing. There was quote after quote about donor, okay? And one of the donors says, oh, no, we don't want Biden fighting. Why? Why do the donors not want Democrats fighting? Because the donors are not Democrats. They can call themselves Democrats, they could have a D on their helmet, but that doesn't make a goddamn difference, okay? At the end of the day, they want their tax cuts, just like the Republican donors do. They want deregulation, just like the Republican donors do. They want Wall Street to get trillions of dollars in support from both the Treasury and the Federal Reserve. and to never be questioned. But the minute you want to do paid family leave or the minute you want to lower drug prices, no. Everybody go back to agreeing with the Republicans, okay? But wait, those are the most popular provisions. If we fought on those grounds, we would definitely win. Lowering drug prices has an 88% popularity. Don't you dare do it. Biden is awesome for laying down like a doormat for Republicans. But the people in corporate media are so absurdly clueless. Let's be kind and say clueless.
I don't think they're clueless. I think they know what they're doing. I'm gonna read one other excerpt from the Politico piece because they try to paint Biden as a tough talker when it really matters. And I think this is hilarious. They write, in regard to the gubernatorial race in Virginia, during the swing, Biden laid into Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin by contrasting the two parties in more explicit terms, saying extremism can come in many forms, Biden said at the time. It can come in the rage of a mob driven in an assault, driven to assault the Capitol. It can come in a smile and a fleece vest. Homeboy vacationed, okay, in the co-CEO of Carlyle Group's home. And guess who the other co-CEO for Carlyle Group was? Glenn Youngkin.
Oh, come on, it's devastating. That's a fact, guys, that's a fact. How come you never heard that fact anywhere in mainstream media? So they're just a joke, man. So, I mean, look at that quote. That was supposed to be the example of Biden being ferocious. And then there was a dispute in the article about why, did he really mean it or did McAuliffe push him to do that when he wasn't comfortable? Mentioning that fleece vest, woo! Mentioning January 6th, woo! I mean, are you serious? Look at how soft they are. Oh no, a Republican candidate. I mean, the only reason Biden won, and he only won by 43,000 votes in 3 states. He was within this close to losing to a fascist. He's within by the skin of his teeth, he won against the guy who was gonna end democracy. That's how bad a candidate Joe Biden is. And he's gonna double down and say, oh no, if you thought I was bad last time, this time I'm not even gonna show up. I'm not even gonna show up. And Anna, it isn't about how he's old. Yeah, he's old and he's got issues staying awake, etc., right? But Joe Biden never fought Republicans. He could be 40, he could be 50, he could be 30, doesn't matter. We tracked his whole career for you guys. Again, during the primaries, mainstream media said, do not ever talk about Joe Biden's career. You're not allowed to criticize him, okay? What an insane thing that they did. They would not talk about the crime bill. They would not talk about his record on war on drugs and the deregulations and codifying Bush's tax cuts for the rich, all the things that he did. They never talked about it. Why? Because Biden's track record and why the donors love him, the establishment loves him, television anchors love him, is because his #1 go-to move is surrender to Republicans. Oh, what do you need? In that tax cut deal, he gave away 94% of the tax cuts. Bush couldn't make them permanent. Biden, in negotiating that for the Obama administration, cut a deal so bad, even other corporate Democrats were like, Joe, for God's sake. The senator from Colorado wrote a whole book about how terrible that deal was. He made 94% of the tax cuts for the rich permanent. Biden did that. So no, he's a Trojan horse for corporate America. We're living under 100% corporate rule, and corporations love weak Democrats that give them everything when they're in power and then go and surrender to Republicans during elections.
Yeah, so good luck, Democratic Party. Keep scaremongering about the right wing and how your opponents are so dangerous to democracy while you're vacationing in their homes and you're hobnobbing with them during fundraisers, not buying it. They have nothing else to run on because they accomplish jack. Okay, and they need to take responsibility for it. It's not the progressives' fault that they're massive losers who failed to even pass their own agenda. All right, let's move on to Cuomo. So a little bit of trouble for Chris Cuomo over at CNN. CNN anchor Chris Cuomo looked into opposition research on his brother Andrew Cuomo's sexual misconduct accusers. This is according to new documents that were released by New York's Attorney General Letitia James. And we have some evidence of text messages that Cuomo had sent to members of Andrew Cuomo's team. They were coordinating in how to respond to the sexual misconduct allegations and other issues that former Governor Cuomo was dealing with. Now, text messages between the CNN journalist and top Cuomo aide Melissa DeRosa show that Chris Cuomo offered to draft statements for his brother to use to deny misconduct, demanded more influence over the strategy, and even researched potential news coverage and accusers for the governor's office. Also, the newly released messages show that Chris Cuomo was deeply immersed in an effort to track down information about his brother's accusers. So for instance, here's some of the text messages. He writes, "I have a lead on the wedding girl." He wrote that to DeRosa on March 4th, an apparent reference to Anna Rush, who accused the governor of touching her improperly at a wedding in a story published by the New York Times on March 1st. Chris Cuomo also railed against the governor's top aide for not looping him and other outside advisors into more aspects of the response to the accusations. I'll give you those details in a second. Cenk, go ahead.
Anna, we got breaking news as we're doing this story. CNN has just suspended Chris Cuomo indefinitely. So that just happened as we were talking, and so they are beginning to take action. You could tell from their equivocal statements that they were headed in this direction. I was going to tell you that later in the story, but boom, it's already happened. So I have strong thoughts about whether they should have done that. But I want to let Anna tell the rest of the story and then come back and tell you. Now, I'll give you a warning ahead of time. I am slightly biased in favor of Chris Cuomo, but I think that the number one problem isn't Cuomo. It's all of mainstream media. But I want to get into that in a second. But first, the details.
All right, so some more details for you guys. So again, he was irritated with the former governor's top aide because he wanted to be more involved in the strategy to respond to the accusations. He said something along the lines of, well, actually, let me give you his exact text. He said, "You need to trust me, Liz, and Jeff more." He writes in one message to DeRosa, "Not these other people. We're making mistakes we can't afford." And believe it or not, based on these documents, it gets worse. On March 12th, for instance, he sent DeRosa the draft of a never released statement for his brother to use to explain why he cannot and will not resign the governorship. Cuomo advised his older brother to say that he understands why accusation charges as acts of political warfare. He wrote that the then governor should say that he understands the conformity that can be forced by cancel culture. No resign, no resign, no resign, Cuomo writes in one message to DeRosa. And there's more, but Cenk, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, okay, so first, like I said earlier, I'm slightly biased in favor of Chris Cuomo. Why? Because he was a very rare, if not the only cable news anchor that actually heard out progressives. You can get on MSNBC as a progressive, no chance, okay? But Cuomo would have you on every once in a while. Is he a saint in that regard? Absolutely not. Is he a progressive? Absolutely not. He's very centrist. You could tell in the comments, like talking about woke culture, cancel culture, etc. You hear it on the show all the time. I think he is in the same groupthink as mainstream media. Corporate positions are moderate and awesome and wonderful, but at least he had the decency for some period of time to go, let's hear the progressive position, which almost no one else on cable news does. So I want to give him credit there and lay out my bias there in his favor. Now, at the same time, I can't stand his brother. I think Andrew Cuomo was the prototypical corporate politician who was intensely corrupt, let alone the sexual harassment charges. But we were telling you about his corruption for literally decades. We would show you instance after instance as the rest of the mainstream media celebrated Andrew Cuomo. So I got no love for Andrew Cuomo at all, okay? And especially on these charges, should anyone have defended him? Well, it depends on the facts, and the facts were brutal against Andrew Cuomo, so no, they shouldn't have. Now, do I get that why Chris defended his brother? Of course, we all do, right? Because it's his brother, and he said it. And the reason here, my substantive defense is, he was at least honest about it. Whereas the rest of mainstream media supports every corporate politician, by the way, including Andrew Cuomo, without ever questioning them, and are never honest about their bias, never. So they turned on him because of the sexual harassment allegations, but before it was, oh, Andrew Cuomo's the best. Oh, maybe Andrew Cuomo should run instead of Biden. Maybe they should put Cuomo in his place. Oh, Cuomo's this, Cuomo's that. Meanwhile, we already knew at that point he'd already shut down a commission to investigate corruption once they started looking into his corruption. And we can go on, there's dozens of instances of Andrew Cuomo's corruption that all of media, including CNN, completely ignored. They were giant fans and basically did propaganda and advertising and marketing for Andrew Cuomo. Now they turn around and go, it was his brother's fault. Not buying it, not buying it. He was the only one who was actually honest. Obviously, I'm on my brother's side here, and he did not cover it. Can you still cross lines? Yes.
And he did.
Did he? That's an interesting question.
No, I don't even think it's a question. He absolutely did. He used his media contacts, okay, which of course he has had access to as a result of his job as an anchor on CNN to help his brother out. Right, hitting up reporters, if they maybe covered his brother in a way he didn't like. He would hit them up and ask some questions, trying to dig up dirt on the accusers here. No, I mean, look, I don't care if he covered his brother on his show or not. Obviously, he can't do that, and he didn't do that. But he used his position of power to help defend his brother and dig up dirt on the women who accused his brother of sexual misconduct allegations. I don't care if he had progressives on. I don't care if he had us on very briefly during the Democratic primaries. I don't care about any of that. What I care about is what does he do with his power? And clearly, in this position of power, while he wasn't covering the story on his show, he was still using that position of power in order to defend the indefensible.
So here's where I think a couple of lines are. One, did you do Oppo research on a victim? That's a line that should definitely not be crossed, right? And so I read with great care what they said he did, and that's why I think it's debatable. And I'm curious what you guys think. I hear you, Anna, on your position. So what he did was he called other people to find out if Ronan Farrow was going to publish a piece and if it was going to include more than the first accuser. So nowhere, as far as I saw, did he then go to reporters and say the accusers are no good, here's their problems, here's their background. If he'd done that, that clearly crosses the line. But it doesn't appear that he did that. Now, you could agree with Anna that no, just the very fact of calling other reporters crossed the line, partly because you're an anchor on CNN. That is a very, very coveted position. And a lot of people want to go on CNN. So if they think that you're asking for a favor, that puts people in an awkward spot, right? The part
a journalist, Cenk, like the only real role, I know that we forget, right? Because we don't really have many journalists who do this. The only real role for journalists is to hold people in positions of power accountable. That is the only real function for journalism, right? We're talking about at the time, governor of New York, who has engaged in misconduct, not just sexual misconduct, but also the kind of misconduct that led to unnecessary deaths in nursing homes because he forced the nursing homes in the state of New York to take in elderly coronavirus patients who still had coronavirus, okay? No, I'm sorry, if you're gonna call yourself a journalist while simultaneously helping out your brother in a position of power behind the scenes, knowing full well that he has committed gross injustice this in various cases, whether it be sexual misconduct or these nursing homes. You're not a journalist. You have no role as a primetime anchor on any news show.
Yeah, no, look, the reason why I keep sticking, look guys, Cuomo's probably gone, okay? So it does, I mean, if they used to get suspended indefinitely, it's super hard to come back from that. So this is not a conversation about, oh boy, wouldn't it be great to be on Cuomo's show? He hasn't had us on since the minute Bernie Sanders lost the chance of being on. So I don't want you to think that it's personal in that sense. I'm being overly careful about telling you about our bias. As soon as Bernie Sanders lost his chance, everybody wiped out every progressive on television, okay?
I don't have a bias. I don't care about going on CNN at all. 0%.
No, I mean, look at us. We've ripped CNN 1,000 times, even just on this one show. But I'm telling you what my real opinions are, okay? So in this case, look, he did not cover Cuomo when Andrew Cuomo ran into these controversies, right? But he did cover Andrew Cuomo during coronavirus and gave him enormous positive coverage. But again, so did the rest of the media, overflowing praise for Andrew Cuomo. And here we are, we're screaming, the guy does everything for his donors. Look at what he did for the real estate interest in New York. It's so obvious and it's provable, and we've shown it to you. Yet none of them would cover it. And they would pretend to be neutral and objective as they kissed Andrew Cuomo's ass 24/7. And they not only let Chris do those segments supporting Andrew Cuomo during coronavirus, they encouraged him to do it. Now they turn around and go, it turns out there's gambling in this establishment. They're just shocked. No, I'm okay with them suspending Chris Cuomo if they suspend everyone else at the network for always supporting corporate politicians and never at least having the decency to be honest about it. Chris Cuomo was honest about supporting his brother. The rest of that network and the rest of mainstream media is never honest about supporting corporate politicians and always being against both the right wing and the left wing.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to take a trip to Clowntown, where a political science professor talks about his hurt feelings in regard to independent women.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was too strong coffee? Yes, new, toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at toostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
That's 300 million, that's a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day. We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone, 15 billion views.
Damn.
All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Rob Shively, what do you know? Rob says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me, or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Cenk and Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
All right, let me do a little quick plug here. It's not even a plug, I'm bragging, okay? I'm bragging, watch me. We have a channel on YouTube, a whole channel devoted just to the Young Turks. It's badass, right?
Wow, man.
I can see the voice.
You guys are rock stars.
Unbelievable, Senator Sanders. Welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Man, you guys are amazing. We gave you what you wanted.
Okay. Speaking of shirts.
I have a surprise.
You reached a lot of people. You are the Young Turks. And we have spread that progressive message wide and far. Let's keep it going.
We go beyond the headline. We are willing to engage in transparent conversations with those who do not think like me. We also make sure that you know what's happening not only nationally, but in your local area. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's fantastic. It's a story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
All right, back on TYT, Jen Canana with you guys. All right, more news.
Let's take a little trip to Clown Town.
Feminist ethic of careerism and easy sex is a recipe for national disaster.
Disagree. Now you might be wondering, who is that? Well, it's a political science professor from Boise State University, and he believes that women should be banned from practicing medicine, engineering, law. In fact, he thinks the only place for a woman is in the home, raising children. And based on the fact that he exists, women should probably consider banning reproduction. But nonetheless, let me give you the details of who this guy is. His name is Scott Yenner, and he's a professor of political science over at Boise State University. And he also teaches political philosophy. And he recently spoke at the National Conservatism Conference in Orlando. This happened in late October. But the video of his speech has just gone viral. And there are too many tidbits to share with you. Let's start with the first.
It has sold many women a bill of goods, and a genuinely fulfilling communal family life has been a casualty of the lies that our country's leaders have been telling. It has led to many men without purpose in their lives, and just as many women who are friendless, unhappy, and without purpose.
Okay, so that was a fascinating argument, right? Because it's like feminism is so terrible that it has led to men with no purpose in their lives. But what do feminists have anything to do with men lacking purpose in their lives?
Why don't they man up and take personal responsibility for their own lives? What kind of a man goes, what did the feminists say? Oh, okay, then I'm not gonna do anything, the feminists said something. Oh, come on, man. So it's pathetically weak, but that's generally conservatives. This is a super interesting case because he's about to say things that are much worse, in my opinion. And should he keep his job? Well, that's a really hard question. He's tenured. But at the same time, do you really want to take his classes if this is what he thinks about women? So by the way, we have a poll on it. We care about what you think. We're gonna give you all the details, tyt.com/polls to vote on it. And this is another one that I think is tough. But what's interesting is the defense of him by conservatives. They think this is all legitimate way of thinking.
I'm in a decisive mood. I think he should be fired, but I'll make my case after presenting all the evidence, okay? And to be clear, I am not the type of person who just willy-nilly wants to fire people, especially when it comes to academic freedom and tenured professors, but just let me present the evidence and I'll make my case. I wanna go to the second video where he not only doubles down on what he's saying, the big brain gentleman here also wants to make a point about how the world is falling apart because women just aren't having kids.
If our ideal woman is a childless media scold or a barren bureaucratic apparatchik, there is no question whether we can have a future. We can't. There is a question of whether we deserve one. Stats back up the important observations here. Our feminist culture points women, especially young women, away from marriage and family life through its celebration of careerism. Thus, more and more women, every generation, delay marriage and increasingly forego marriage. As women delay and forego marriage, they're increasingly likely to delay and forego having children. When women forego marriage and decline to have children, Men are not called forth to the duties of fatherhood, for instance. And when men are not called forth to duties of fatherhood, they are hardly called forth to any duties at all. The providing father is the model for all male duty. Many men lose their way when they are not called forth towards such important duties like fatherhood that connect them with enduring commitments through creating a family and leading a marriage.
So in other words, not only is this guy insulting women, he's also insulting men as these aimless, pathetic losers who don't know what to do with themselves unless they have a child to take care of. Now, I happen to believe that men have a lot more to live for. I happen to believe that men find purpose in many different facets of life other than just having children. But this is the insulting worldview that this man has, not just in regard to women, but also in regard to men. That men, again, are just aimless losers who don't know what to do with themselves unless they procreate, unless they have children to take care of. Other thing, this is a side note, but it's really creepy how much this guy has sat down to think about the personal sex lives of private individuals. Just putting that out there. And then the final thing I want to note, no mention of the economic factors that literally force couples to have a dual income household. Because I would love for him to address the fact that we have no mandatory paid family leave, okay? We have no social safety net, no support for new families. And he acts as if like, oh, therefore all these people are foregoing marriage and having children. I'm sure there are plenty of people who would like to have children, okay? Who have really considered having children. But you sit down, you think about the economics of it, and it doesn't make any sense. There's no childcare in America. The cost of childcare is astronomical. You cannot make ends meet with a single income household unless you have one person working in finance or something, making a ton of money. I mean, no mention about the economic factors. All this is I don't like what's happening to our culture and I want women to stay home because men are, in my mind, incredible losers who have nothing better to do unless they have kids to take care of. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, we're about to get to the worst video, but I'll just chip in two quick things on this one here. First of all, they're so concerned about like, are women barren?
So creepy. It's like that word is just so creepy.
Yeah.
Like,
no, because what that implies.
Are you barren, homeboy?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, but yeah, some men are sterile, by the way. There's nothing they could do about it. Are they like, oh, you are to be judged. You're a bad person. What are you, a lunatic? It's called freedom, by the way. So they don't believe that in independence and freedom at all. Hey, a woman could be an anthropologist, or she could be a banker, or she could stay at home. We are in favor of choice. Let her do whatever the hell she wants. It's called, that's the whole idea of freedom. He says, no. If they're not at home popping out kids, they're barren. They shouldn't even be going out there in the workforce. What happened to freedom? Okay, they're the world's biggest hypocrites. They never meant any of it. And the word barren implies your job as a woman is to make babies for us. And if you're not doing that, you're useless, hence barren. Okay, and so now those are funny pictures. But I want to double down on what Anna said too, because he insults men so much. The conservatives have this incredibly weak view of men, and if you're a conservative, I hope you don't believe that. But almost every one of them says the same thing, right? Like I have kids. I got them later in life. I had my son when I was 40 and my daughter when I was 42. I wasn't going around wandering around like, oh, what's the big deal, man? Oh, I have no purpose.
I think you're building a company. Right?
Yeah, I was building this company and I worked my ass off. I worked 15, 18-hour days. I was some jackass. Oh, I play video games because there's no babies. There's no babies, so I'm an idiot. I'm a dumb. I have no purpose because there's no babies. Oh, a baby. I now have purpose.
No,
look at the comical view of men they have.
But by the way, maybe for some men, maybe for him, having children, and he has 5 kids, so he is not in fact barren, okay? But he has 5 kids, and maybe having those children did in fact give him purpose. And you know what? I applaud him for that. Awesome. But to basically rely on reproducing to give both men and women purpose, I think to project your own values onto everyone else is laughable. And remember, while he's like spewing all this like crazy stuff about like barren women and all that, you have like, he doesn't want women to be part of the workforce. He wants a huge portion of the workforce to stay home. And this is happening at a time when, yes, the birth rate is at an all-time low in America, right? Less and less people, less and less couples are planning on having children. And that's leading to economists panicking because in order for our capitalistic economy to work, you need a workforce, right? You need workers. And so they're panicking about people not having kids, economists are. But this guy is like, no, let's accelerate this situation and just subtract all these women from the workforce because I don't like independent women, which he's about to get into in this next video.
What does this independent woman really mean? Our independent women seek their purpose in life in mid-level bureaucratic jobs like human resource management, environmental protection, and marketing. They are more medicated, meddlesome, and quarrelsome than women need to be. Without connections to eternity delivered through their family, such medicated, quarrelsome, and meddlesome women gain their meaning through the seeming participation in the global project. They are agents of the new world, but not new life.
Notice he used the word meddlesome not once, but twice. And that's important. It's really, really important. Because what does meddlesome really mean here? It means women who have economic independence have power. And they get to have a say, whether it be in a marriage, in a household, in a workplace, whatever it is. And he don't like that.
And I gotta build on that because that's such a terrific point. It implies, by the very nature of the word, that men are in charge and women are meddling. Like he would never call men meddlesome. Who would they be meddling with? They would be meddling with the women in power, presumably, right? It would never even occur to him to call men meddlesome. But men should have all the power. Now he says they should, what are they going to the workforce for? To be involved in the global project? Well, then why are men going into the workforce? To be involved in the global, why don't you have disdain for them being involved in the global project? No, because that is the arena of men making important decisions and exercising power. Now women want to come in here and meddle with us exercising power. How dare they? And then when you say go back into the kitchen and produce babies for me, they're quarrelsome. They quarrel with me. I mean, again, look at the assumption there. I am right. And if you disagree with me, you're being quarrelsome. Okay,
yeah.
So no, that last video right there, that ends the conversation.
Yeah.
Not in terms of whether he should be fired, because he is tenured. That's continues to be interesting. But in terms of whether he has a legitimate point of view. And look, hey, this is just a conservative point of view. And I think the transgender person on the track team is the wrong thing. And taxes should be 37% and not 39%. No. He obviously thinks women are inferior. He doesn't mind saying it publicly.
He doesn't think that women should be at college getting an education for a future career. Thus, his ideology conflicts with his ability to perform his job. Okay, there's a huge conflict there. He should not be a professor because he is handing down grades for female students, and clearly he has a strong bias against those female students, which is why I'm decisive on this, okay? I believe in tenure, I believe in academic freedom. This ain't academic freedom. This is a belief system that creates a conflict for his female students. He's clearly biased against them. I question whether he's able to objectively give them the grades they deserve. I mean, in the very least, the university should look into whether or not he's been fair to female students, okay? But it seems like they're not even willing to do that. The university has released a statement essentially saying that, look, he says things that might make people uncomfortable, but we're not gonna do anything about it because of his academic freedom.
Yeah, so the reason why I say it's difficult is because tenure must be protected. Because if you don't protect tenure, who are the first people that are gonna come after? I guarantee you it's going to be left-wing professors. And God forbid if you're a professor who's left-wing and supports Palestinian rights. Look, the Barry Weiss of the world already started cancel culture a long time ago. And the way that they started it was trying to get professors that they deemed to be insufficiently loyal to Israel fired from many different campuses across the country. So it was actually the right wing that started cancel culture, and it was to fire professors. So I don't want to degrade tenure. So on the other hand, this guy grading people's papers, both men and women, but especially women, is untenable. It's unthinkable. Look, he's teaching poli-sci, and he said in that speech that, what do you want? These women want to be bureaucrats in a global project? Well, who would be a bureaucrat? In his mindset, it would be someone who goes into politics. He made 2 to 3 references to politics in just a short videos that we showed you guys. So he literally thinks, if you're a woman in my political science class, I don't think you should go into this field. I think you're better off being a chattel for a man, being chained somewhere and popping out babies. So what are you doing in my goddamn class? Trying to learn political science. What, are you gonna be a bureaucrat? You're gonna be a part of the global project? You're gonna go work for a living?
So do you still find it an interesting question? Or
no, I do. The reason is because there's no way he should be teaching. There's no way he should be giving grades. He's the most biased man in America.
He should be fired.
Okay, but can you put him in some administrative position where he basically does nothing so you protect tenure, but not have him teach classes? Do stupid right-wing Neanderthal research in a corner and have Ben Shapiro fap to it. I don't care, okay? But I can't have him grading tests. There's no way in the world that guy is gonna be fair to women. No way. By the way, also to men, because he probably hates everybody, but remember what he said earlier, well, until you have a baby, the man is aimless and without purpose. Well, most of the guys in college don't have babies. So he's like, and I bet you he does think of these freaking losers. They come in here with no babies. They're past 18. They haven't even popped out a couple of kids yet. They have no purpose at all. And so these are monstrous views. By the way, celebrated in the right wing. Celebrated.
Of course he is.
Ben Shapiro already wrote an article back in 2017 before the latest controversy, but he'd already said stuff like this. And Shapiro says, it's a witch hunt against this poor professor. But Shapiro does make a good point. He said he is very much in the mainstream of conservative thought. So this is people reacting against conservative ideology. Well, if this is your ideology, yeah, we're reacting against it because you guys are monsters, idiots, and you hate the idea of freedom for 51% of the country. How much clearer can you be? The guy freaking said it. You don't belong in the workforce. You don't deserve the choice that men have. Go back to producing babies for men. Yeah, this is what conservatives think, and they're monsters.
You want people to have babies, create the economic conditions for them to feel comfortable making that choice. It's that easy. End of story. We gotta take a break. We'll be right back.
While the Young Turks, the Friday show is gonna be awesome. We're gonna help us over here. Drop it. We became the first ever daily online web television show.
No, the Constitution is the very core of America. The fact that we don't spy on American citizens, that we get a warrant, that we go to a judge, that we have a procedure, that we have due process, that is America.
On top of that, they go, why don't they just stay at their own schools? You gotta realize something. These schools suck. They want people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You ain't got no straps, you ain't got no boots.
He lit these fires in trash bins all around town out of frustration.
99th most viewed channel today on YouTube. The Shorties Award, Best Web Host. We passed 1 billion views. Voice Award winner, News and Information Channel, The Young Turks. Oh, another Webby.
The Young Turks.
Can I curse? Yeah! For those of you watching on live stream, yes, we have adopted a pet iguana that showed up at our door.
The haunted version in the dark with our silhouettes.
Now let's get to the best line of the debate. And it was definitely the one against Phillips. I told you we were coming.
You talk about it when it becomes a problem. Our lack of gun control is a problem.
Nonsense BS story is hurting that cause, and they need to wake up and recognize that they are being had by these people.
Biggest gang in America. Question is, how do we make sure that we blame the person who is dead? What kind of democracy is that?
We should never forget that the most powerful people in the world exploited the greatest tragedy in American history to go to war in a country that had a lot of oil.
Rolling thunder. That's what this show is.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
We are a socialist country. It's socialism for the rich.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
You don't have to know the truth, just believe what they tell you.
There is no bounds to their monstrous hypocrisy. Tick-tock. I think we're gonna win the Senate in 2020. And I think we're gonna have the House, and I think we're gonna have the presidency. Tick-tock. And in 2020, we're going to clean your clock, and we're gonna run you out of town, and we're gonna have an actual democracy in this country.
November of 2020 could also be potentially the greatest day of our lives. Let us whisper of a dream.
Say hi to the camera.
I don't like this. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, but also Kathy Orlando and Stephen O'Neill, because they just became American heroes. They hit the join button below on YouTube. Now you're supporting great journalism. We hope, we think, we're gas. But you see us trying to give you all the facts and let you guys decide, okay? You don't see that in any place else, so we thank you for supporting us. Members are the Young Turks. You guys make the show possible. All right, Anna.
Candace Owens's conservative funders are definitely getting their money's worth, because just recently she was on Tucker Carlson's show saying what she's paid to say. Basically smear Black Americans. Let's watch.
One thing I always say, Tucker, is that the left can pull a racist narrative from thin air where it doesn't exist, but when it actually is in their face, they try to avoid it at all costs, especially when the perpetrator is a Black person against another white person, which obviously happens more often in this country, given the fact that Black Americans are the most murderous group in America by rate.
Okay, so we'll talk about that very last statement regarding African Americans being the most murderous in the country. But I want to give you more context, because I'm sure you noticed in that video, you see a photo of Daryl Brooks show up, and Daryl Brooks was the person who drove his SUV through the holiday parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin, killing 6 individuals, by the way. Now, something curious is happening with that story, because on one hand, like, the guy is a criminal, and he's not just a criminal for what he did on that day. He's a criminal because he's got a long rap sheet of violent crime, okay? Now, the authorities in the area released statement after statement about how we don't know for sure what his motive is, but we know that this was not any type of terrorist attack. In fact, let me go to the second graphic here. Waukesha Police Chief Daniel Thompson said the attack, quote, was not a terrorist event. But the right wing wants to make this a anti-white terrorist attack by a Black man, when in reality, he's just a terrible criminal who had no business being out on bail in the first place. So for instance, investigators have said Daryl Brooks was fleeing the scene of a domestic dispute when he turned into the parade, but police were not pursuing him. He was free on $1,000 bail in a Milwaukee County case earlier in November, in which he's accused of intentionally striking a woman with his car. He should not have been out on bail. Okay, so that is the only statement that you're gonna see in this whole exchange that's accurate. But trying to tie Darrell Brooks to some like anti-white hate crime is just, there's no evidence of that. Anyway,
yeah. No, look, I don't even want to engage in their ridiculous debates. Like they're trying to make this political, and you have to look at the case, right? So sometimes there are attacks by Muslim terrorists here in America, and they're political in nature because they will state it as such. Sometimes there's attack by right-wing terrorists, and they state in their attacks, this is because I love Donald Trump and I want to send a pipe bomb to his enemies, including people in the media and people in politics. They very clearly stated, the guy who drove up with a truck full of bombs, he claimed, right, into Washington, D.C. He said, I hate Biden, I'm doing it for Trump, and we need to do X, Y, and Z. They make very political statements.
El Paso, Texas, the mass shooter
immigrants,
in 2019 did a mass shooting, killed 23 people at a Walmart, very clearly motivated by his anti-immigrant ideology. I mean, it's curious that they don't mention those issues.
Yes, and we go on and on. Of course, there's Dylan Roof, and there's they wanted to start a race war, etc. Right? But by the way, are there white right-wingers who do mass shootings or crimes that are not political? Yes. All the time. And so there's tons of mass shootings in America. And generally speaking, the right wing has more guns, uses them more often. And so there's a lot more right wing mass shooters. Are they all political? Absolutely not. Some are, they state it as political, and that's terrorism. The others are just random. They're mad at the people at work. They're random at an ex-girlfriend. They're all emotionally unstable, etc. Right? So you have to use your judgment. In this case, the guy's a lifelong criminal, and he obviously hates women. He ran over that woman. He attacked his ex-girlfriend, and the list goes on and on. There's no way that guy should have been free. Nobody on the left wing thinks that. Nobody on the right wing thinks that. So they're trying to make something that isn't political in this case into something that is. But that's the least of it. Look, guys, the reason that I care about this story is, I mean, she just went so far over the top here. I mean, I don't want to bury the lead here. She said, quote, and you saw it with your own eyes, you can rewind it and see it again. Black Americans are the most murderous group in America by race. That's an outrageously absurd thing to say. And so, okay, so if she were to put it in context and say, look, here are the stats on crime. Here's the stats on socioeconomic conditions. And you see that unfortunately, people with less money sometimes commit more physically violent crimes. People with more money commit more white collar crimes. They steal more money, but it doesn't involve physical violence, and gave everything context and then broke it down. You say, oh, okay, that's an interesting conversation.
If there was actual nuance in her argument, right? Right,
and if there were facts shared, etc. Instead, they never shared any of that in the entire segment. She just called black people murderers and said that they were the most murderous group in America by race. So that is exactly why they bring out Candace Owens, because Tucker Carlson wants to call black Americans murdering savages, but he knows he can't do that. So he's like, that's what we pay Candace for. Hey, Candace, come here, come here. Now call all black people murderous by race, okay? The most murderous by race. But again, if we're having that conversation, that's not even close. The most murderous by race in the history of America are white right-wingers by a landslide. They did slavery. They started the Civil War. They killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. They enslaved people. We can go on and on with all the crimes of white right-wingers by race. But we don't do that either. We give you the context. We give you the context of slavery, and we don't blame all white people. But that's not what Fox News does. Fox News goes, Candace Owens, we're paying you to come out here and say terrible things about the people in your own race. By the way, she doesn't believe a word of it. She earlier in her life sued for racial harassment. So when it was to her advantage, she's like, give me money, give me money, give me money. Oh, I believe in racial harassment and racism is terrible. Now Fox News is giving her money, and all of these other outlets and right-wing billionaires are giving her money. So she's like, oh, yeah, there's no racism except by black people. They hate white people and they're murderers. Well, look, in the past, they would bring you into the house. Now they pay you so you can buy your own house. Yeah, I said it, Candace. You're the worst of the worst. You're a sellout of extraordinary, by extraordinary measures, calling all black people murderers the way that you just did right there, by race. You're scum of the earth. None of that money is worth it. None of it is worth it. If you sleep at night, you're an even worse monster than I imagined.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, Laura Logan's in the news. Awesome. We'll talk about what she had to say in regard to Anthony Fauci when we return.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new, toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at toostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
That 300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day. We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone, 15 billion views.
Damn.
All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Rob Shively. What do you know? Rob says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me, or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Cenk and Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
All right, let me do a little quick plug here. It's not even a plug, I'm bragging, okay? I'm bragging, watch me. We have a channel on YouTube, a whole channel devoted just to the Young Turks. It's badass, right? Wow, man. I can see the voice.
You guys are rock stars.
Unbelievable. Senator Sanders, welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Man, you guys are amazing. We gave you what you wanted.
Okay. Speaking of shirts.
I have a surprise.
You reached a lot of people. You are the Young Turks. And we have spread that progressive message wide and far. Let's keep it going.
Here's what we do. We go beyond the headline. We are willing to engage in transparent conversations with those who do not think like me. We also make sure that you know what's happening not only nationally, but in your local area. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. And all of you who are members, including John Bogino, read one comment here. He said, I'm watching a live show with my sister, who normally doesn't choose to watch TYT, and she thinks that Anna is 100% right about women in the workforce. You see that? You watch TYT, you go, well, wait a minute, those guys are totally right. Especially Anna. Okay, all right, we move forward.
John Bogino, tell your sister I say what's up.
Okay,
I hope she watches more often.
All of a sudden, now that you're getting the compliments. Okay, anyways.
All right, let's get to, unfortunately, Lara Logan. So, during a recent appearance on Fox News's primetime Fox Nation, host Lara Logan decided to compare Anthony Fauci to a Nazi doctor, Joseph Mengele to be exact. Let's hear her argument.
In that moment, what you see on Dr. Fauci, this is what people say to me, that he doesn't represent science to them. He represents Joseph Mengele, Dr. Joseph Mengele, the Nazi doctor who did experiments on Jews during the Second World War and in the concentration camps. And I am talking about people all across the world are saying this because the response from COVID, what it has done to countries everywhere, what it has done to civil liberties, the suicide rates, the poverty, it has obliterated economies. The level of suffering that has been created because of this disease is now being seen in the cold light of day, i.e. the truth. And people see that there's no justification for what is being done.
Okay, so let me just give you some info in case you're not familiar with Joseph Mengele, because he is nothing like Anthony Fauci, dubbed by the inmates and survivors of the camp the Angel of Death. He, with a slight flick of the finger, would casually select those permitted to live and work and those destined to die in the gas chambers. Among those he selected to live were the subjects upon whom he conducted his infamous race-inspired medical experiments. So she's comparing him, a Nazi doctor, to Anthony Fauci, who's like, hey, can you guys maybe just get vaccinated, wear masks? We don't want people to die. Let's prevent death. But Anthony Fauci has to be the culture war symbol for the right wing. I don't really understand it, but it is what it is. Cenk, what do you think?
So Lara Logan obviously has issues. She's just lost her mind. Joseph Mengele is one of the worst people in the history of humanity. He did these grotesque experiments on people. They were real people. They were people's aunts, sisters, friends. And he first of all, with the group that he selected for death, he led to their murder. And with others, he did these grotesque experiments, etc. Fauci's trying to save people's lives. But people who have lost their minds, and again, I referred to this Twitter thread that I just read yesterday. It's by verified accounts, it's a real person. They lost their brother and their father because they were convinced that the people who got vaccinated are shedding the vaccine and the vaccine's making them sick. Now, no actual doctor believes that. 99% of the world's doctors agree with Dr. Fauci. 99% of the world's scientists agree with Dr. Fauci. So if Dr. Fauci's Mengele, she's saying almost all of the doctors in the entire world are part of a global conspiracy. And then they're gonna cause you to get sick if you take the vaccine, and that's what's causing the problem. I mean, this is lunatic stuff. But the reality is that mainstream media has tolerated right-wing lunacy for so long that it doesn't even seem that extraordinary anymore. They all disagreed with climate change. 99% of the world's scientists think climate change is real and man-made. They're like, no, scientists all across the world are making up temperature readings. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Because scientists in Russia and South Africa and America and Brazil are not making up temperature readings. They're not all lying about the science. You'd have to be a lunatic to think that. And that's what Lara Logan is. And as she comes, look, half of it is that it's outrageous to compare anyone to Mengele, let alone a guy trying to save your life. The other problem though is both thought leaders, oh God, if you could use that phrase in the context of the right wing, but their leaders in media and in politics and their followers have become part of a cult
where facts don't matter at all. They have an entire alternate universe where there's like child killers and they drink the blood, and then there's satanic and there's reptiles, and then, oh my God, vaccines don't help people, they hurt people. But everybody dying in the hospitals is unvaccinated. Every doctor says it, every hospital says it. All the people that are hospitalized and dying, almost all of them, are unvaccinated. How do you explain that? Oh, I have a conspiracy theory. And it's because, all the doctors are like the Nazis. Now doctors are Nazis. This is the insanity of right-wing Fox News. Look, Lara Logan, I don't know what happened and how she lost her mind, but anyone who thinks she's a real news person is totally deluded. Yes, she worked at 60 Minutes. You know, they had to actually.
I can't believe she worked at 60 Minutes.
No, I know, but they had to actually suspend her because she submitted a junk report on Benghazi, and they're like, none of this checks out. You haven't cited any real facts.
That's shocking. It's shocking that she did that.
Yeah, of course. So because she worked in mainstream media, and because right-wing propaganda tells you everybody in mainstream media is liberal, everybody assumed, oh, Lara Logan must be a real reporter, must be liberal. No, she's a right-wing lunatic. Just, that's it, we're done with it.
And we're not the only ones who think that. In response to her insane claims about Anthony Fauci, the Auschwitz Memorial released a statement. I want to read that to you. They write, exploiting the tragedy of people who became victims of criminal pseudo-medical experiments in Auschwitz is a debate, in a debate about vaccines, pandemic, and people who fight for saving human lives is shameful. It is disrespectful to victims and a sad symptom of moral and intellectual decline. And honestly, I couldn't agree more with that statement. It's incredibly insulting to the victims of the Holocaust, the victims of this Nazi doctor, to compare Anthony Fauci to the Nazi doctor. But this is what they do. I mean, every time I see a segment like that on a Fox News show, I always follow up in my mind, well, I mean, what else are they gonna talk about? Are they gonna talk about labor strikes? Are they gonna talk about corporate greed? Are they gonna talk about corporate wealth? They're not gonna talk about any of that stuff. Of course, this is what they do. This is what they do. And I'm never shocked by it anymore.
Look, what does it mean to be crazy? It means being detached from reality. Go to Auschwitz Memorial's Twitter account. What they do is they put up pictures of the people who were murdered during the Holocaust in Auschwitz. And you see what the Nazis actually did. Meanwhile, Fauci's saying, please, I'm begging you to get vaccinated so we can save your life, because over 750,000 Americans have died because of coronavirus. We don't want you to be one of the casualties. We want to save your life. And Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs comes out and goes, oh, they're like the Nazis. The Nazis were trying to save lives, you morons. And no, the vaccine doesn't help people, it hurts people. Every doctor in the world is lying, but Lara Logan knows, and Fox News knows. No, they're lying to you, they're cult leaders. Do not listen to them. They're brainwashing you and making you detached from reality. Actually listen to the actual doctors and scientists. You know someone is wrong when they say, don't listen to the doctors and scientists. That means they're against facts, and that means they're trying to hurt you.
You ready for Enes?
Yeah, I'm ready for Enes.
The moment we've all been waiting for, folks.
Okay.
Boston Celtics player and former Turkish citizen Enes Kanter loves America. He loves it so much that he changed his last name to Freedom. But apparently he doesn't like freedom enough to allow you to voice your opinions. And that's according to Enes. Here he is talking to Tucker Carlson about how much he loves America and how everyone who doesn't love America needs to shut up.
It seems like people who move here from countries that are not free appreciate the freedoms here much more than a lot of us who grew up with those freedoms. Have you noticed that?
You know, I feel like I'm gonna just say this, and I'm gonna be honest. People should feel really blessed and lucky to be in this, be in America, because they love to criticize it, but when you live a country like Turkey or China or somewhere else, you will appreciate the freedoms you have here.
Yes,
you know.
that is exactly.
So I feel like they should just they should just keep their mouth shut and stop criticizing the greatest nation in the world, and they should focus on their freedoms and their human rights and their democracy. So this is America gave me everything I have. So I definitely appreciate the United States of America.
That's how I feel.
Now, Cenk, I will have you answer for your fellow countrymen in just a moment. But before you do so,
you mean my fellow American?
Sure. But before I do that, I just want to note, like that logic is ridiculous. Like, okay, so if you love something, you're not allowed to ever criticize it. So don't you dare discipline your kids, because your kids are perfect. And if you really love them, you wouldn't criticize them, you wouldn't discipline them. In fact, if you do discipline them, must mean you don't love them and you should shut your mouth. Anyway, Cenk, go ahead.
Yeah, and kids, you go out there and tell your parents to shut their mouth and tell them #freedom, okay? Because if you love something, you can't criticize it. Okay, so it goes both ways for parents and for kids.
And if America is so perfect, do we really need the Second Amendment? I mean, what was the Second Amendment for again?
It was to protect against tyranny, because America might become tyrannical.
No, but America's perfect, Cenk.
It's perfect, so we don't need it.
We don't need it.
Oh, that's good news. Okay, so I guess we'll get rid of it.
Mission accomplished, guys. Okay. Awesome.
And while we're getting rid of amendments, he seems like he's not in favor of the First Amendment.
Let's get rid of that too.
Let's go. Okay, all right. America's perfect, so let's get rid of the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. Okay, we're making fun because it's an absurd thing to say, my new name is Freedom, and you should shut your mouth about it. So, look, I love this country, like Enes. I came here and I'm a naturalized American citizen from Turkey. Very similar fact pattern. And I think I'm blessed to be in America, but I recognize that it still has issues. And I think that we can make the country better. Like our founding fathers said, we could strive towards a more perfect union, okay? And by the way, amendments are one way that we do that. We continue, and the founding fathers said, continue to do amendments because that is basically political revolution, and so you don't have to do a physical one. So there's a lot of great parts of the United States Constitution. At the same time, in the beginning, they called black people 3/5 of a person. And that was only so the South could have more power. They didn't actually even give them 3/5 rights. They gave them 0 rights, and they treated them as property. So was that a bad thing? I hope Enes thinks it was a bad thing. But back then, when that was what was happening, people like Enes would have said, well, if you don't like it, shut your mouth. Okay, it's called, hey, I'm proud to be an American. What, are you not proud of how America is? Well, no, I'm not proud of the slavery part, I would have said back then. And he would have said, shut your mouth. And that is what conservatives have said throughout American history. If you ever want any change, hey, they got kids working in the mines. They're like 8 years old and they're working nonstop. And then everybody's getting black lung disease. Maybe we shouldn't have kids working. Maybe we should have weekends. Shut your mouth, okay? America's the best, freedom. Get back in the goddamn mines.
No, I mean.
No, wait a minute. We could love the country. And in fact, because we love the country, we could try to make it better.
No, I think that if you really love something, you should enable its bad behavior.
Oh, I see. Good point. I hadn't thought of it that way.
You should be an apologist for its flaws.
Yeah. Now, look, there's more you should know about Enes Kanter, or Kanter is how you would say it in Turkish. He's a supporter of Fethullah Gulen. Gulen is a Muslim fundamentalist. He's probably the second most powerful person in Turkey. Him and Erdogan, another Muslim fundamentalist who's now the president of Turkey and the most powerful person, used to be great allies. Then they got into a cat fight, and they both wanted almost all the power. They don't actually disagree on any philosophy or politics or principles. They're both fundamentalists, and so I'm against that. I'm secular. And I'm secular in America. I was secular when I was in Turkey. Now, neither one of those guys is secular. They love the religion of Islam and think it should rule, okay? Now, but they got into their cat fight, and so everybody split into different camps. And since Kanter was raised in Gülen's schools, he joined Gülen's cult. And it is very much a cult.
Does Tucker know about all this?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Now here's interesting facts. The American government clearly is protecting Gülen. The Turkish government wants Gülen back, okay?
The Muslim fundamentalist.
Yeah, they want the Muslim fundamentalists to not be protected by the American government, okay? Because they think he orchestrated a coup in Turkey. This pretty good evidence to that effect, okay? And by the way, when we covered it on air, I showed you John Kerry, who was the Democratic Secretary of State back then, was very non-committal about whether the coup was a good idea or not. So the American government had an interesting role there, potentially, we don't know, okay?
Americans be cooing.
Yeah, they coup all over the world. Now, Gülen is very much supported by the American government. He has charter schools all across the world in strategic places, coincidentally. And where, of course, they need teachers, that need to be sent in there into those strategic areas under the guise of, hey, it's a good Muslim school that you should send your Muslim kids to in Muslim countries, right? But he also has a lot of schools here in America. Now, normally Fox News would be alarmed by a Muslim fundamentalist running charter schools all over Texas, but they seem to be totally okay with it. And so does the American government. And they will not turn him over to Turkey under any circumstances. That is an interesting set of facts. So now, does that make Erdogan the good guy? No, neither one of them is the good guy. We actually do news here. I know that's a foreign concept both in Turkey, unfortunately, and in America, but Fox News does right-wing propaganda, corporate media does corporate propaganda. We're here to tell you the truth. So Erdogan is also a Muslim fundamentalist. He's a danger to the country. By the way, Kanter also misrepresents Turkey too. Let's be clear about that. So I'm being super frank about the two most powerful people that are related to Turkey. But again, Gülen lives in Pennsylvania, protected by the American government. That's the guy that Kanter loves. But they're both wrong. They're both right-wingers, they're both fundamentalists, they're both are destroying the secular government of Turkey. But Turkey was not this place that Kanter is making it out to be, where if you disagree with the government, you'd be snatched up by the police. I lived in Turkey till I was 8. Obviously, I've had family and friends there for my whole life. If you're having a conversation, people have nonstop conversations about the government. He makes it sound like a police state. Now, on the other hand, does Erdogan trample on people's rights and lock people up if they speak publicly against him? Yes. And that is destroying the Republic of Turkey, which didn't used to be like that. So, and then finally, I'll be fair to Kanter. Like, look, it's possible that he's kind of an innocent guy. I read a couple of his interviews and he seems really naive. Either he's got a good act or he actually is naive. And he's like, oh, I was with Gülen when the coup was happening. And he seemed really upset. He cried that night. Yeah, dude, his coup failed. That's why he was crying. Okay, but anyways, and he fights for some good things. Like he's really concerned about the concentration camps that the Chinese are running against the Uyghur people. And he has a sneaker that says free Uyghur. I'm in favor of that. Okay, so he does make some good points. He does argue in favor of some human rights, but I think he's being used and manipulated by the right wing, both Turks and Americans like Tucker Carlson for their own agenda. That is, yeah, rah, American deep state is awesome. Ironic on Fox News. And China's the worst. And of course, LeBron is terrible. That's why Fox News loves him even more, etc. He's just being used.
Okay, so final question for you. So Mr. Freedom is not the only Turkish player in the NBA. How do you think Mr. Freedom would do in a matchup against Miami Heat Turkish player Yurt Steven?
Ooh, look at Anna.
I know sports.
Yeah, she had to look it up and she was looking down the whole time to read his name.
I went to like one NBA game recently, and it was Miami Heat against Lakers, and my husband was like, "Oh, that one player with the Miami Heat is a Turkish guy."
Yeah.
So I had to look him up.
No,
Omer Farouk Yurt Steven. Nailed it.
Okay, honestly, I have no idea. I haven't been following the NBA regular season at all. But look, guys, unfortunately in Turkey, because all those basketball players are national figures and very public figures, they kind of have to pick camps. So you're gonna go Erdogan or you're gonna go Gülen, and you're gonna be in a lot of trouble if you go against Erdogan, who's the president, right? And so they even arrested Kanter's dad as a show of force. So there's like very serious oppression in Turkey right now because of Erdogan's government. So Kanter's not wrong about that. It's just his guy isn't any better. And in fact, led massive oppression when he was in charge with Erdogan in Turkey. So, and look, I'm in a unique position where I have the freedom, funny enough, to be against both, which a lot of Turks don't get to have that freedom these days.
Maybe your last name needs to be Freedom.
Think about it, because I'm in favor of freedom in Turkey and in America, and I don't think anyone should shut their mouth. Oh my God, there you have it. Free Uyghur.
All right, we got to take a break. That was fun. That was fascinating. You made that story even more interesting than it already was. When we come back, we'll talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of my favorite topics. You don't want to miss it because she is a victim, and we need to talk about it. We'll be right back.
We need to.
Well, the Young Turks, the Friday show is gonna be awesome. We're gonna help us over here. Drop it. We became the first ever daily online web television show.
No, the Constitution is the very core of America. The fact that we don't spy on American citizens, that we get a warrant, that we go to a judge, that we have a procedure, that we have due process, that is America.
On top of that, they go, why don't they just stay at their own schools? You gotta realize something. These schools suck. They want people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You ain't got no straps, you ain't got no boots.
He lit these fires in trash bins all around town out of frustration.
99th most viewed channel today on YouTube. The Shorties Award. Best web host. We passed 1 billion views. Voice Award winner, news and information channel, The Young Turks. Oh, another Webby.
The Young Turks.
Can I curse? Yeah! For those of you watching on live stream, yes, we have adopted a pet iguana that showed up at our door.
The haunted version in the dark with our silhouettes.
Now let's get to the best line of the debate. And it was definitely the one against philosophers. I told you we were coming.
You talk about it when it becomes a problem. Our lack of gun control is a problem.
Nonsense BS story is hurting that cause, and they need to wake up and recognize that they are being had by these people.
Biggest gang in America. Question is, how do we make sure that we blame the person who is dead? What kind of democracy is that?
We should never forget that the most powerful people in the world exploited the greatest tragedy in American history to go to war in a country that had a lot of oil.
Rolling thunder. That's what this show is.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
We are a socialist country. It's socialism for the rich.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
You don't have to know the truth, just believe what they tell you.
There is no bounds to their monstrous hypocrisy. Tick-tock. I think we're gonna win the Senate in 2020. And I think we're gonna have the House, and I think we're gonna have the presidency. Tick-tock. And in 2020, we're going to clean your clock, and we're gonna run you out of town, and we're gonna have an actual democracy in this country. November of 2020 could also be potentially the greatest day of our lives. Let us whisper of a dream.
That's how you do when I smack your back that I like.
Say hi to the camera.
I don't like this.
All right, back on TYT, Jen Canada with you guys. More news.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is livid with a fellow Republican lawmaker by the name of Nancy Mace. Now, Nancy Mace is a typical Republican. In fact, she's against vaccine mandates. We'll get to all of that later. But Mace apparently has a red line, and that red line is Islamophobia, because she criticized Lauren Boebert's statements in regard to Representative Ilhan Omar. Now, before we get to why Marjorie Taylor Greene is upset about that, why don't we go to this video to hear what Mace had to say.
I have time after time condemned my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for racist tropes and remarks that I find disgusting, and this is no different than any others. As a member of Congress and seeing such division in our country, we all have a responsibility, both elected members of Congress on both sides of the aisle and the American people in our communities and at work, in our communities and everything else, to lower, we have a responsibility to lower the temperature, and this does not do that. I didn't come to Congress to throw bombs on Twitter, to take advantage of people by saying crazy things to raise money, or to be a comedian. I'll leave comedy to Dave Chappelle. I was disappointed in the comments. I was encouraged to see that she did apologize for the comments, and I believe that's a step in the right direction.
Now, of course, Lauren Boebert had called Ilhan Omar a terrorist and then didn't really apologize for it. She doubled down, then twisted it to make it seem like she's this awesome representative looking out for the best interests of her constituents, when in reality, all she does is engage in culture war, nonsense meant to fundraise and distract. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't like Mace's comments there and tweeted the following: Nancy Mace is the trash in the GOP conference. Strong statement coming from actual trash in the GOP conference. She continues to tweet, never attacked by Democrats or Republicans in name only, same thing, because she is not conservative, she's pro-abort. Okay.
Pro-abort.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Mace, you can back up off of Lauren Boebert or just go hang with your real gal pals, the Jihad Squad. You're out of your league. Complete lack of self-awareness there. It's amazing. And I'm no fan of Nancy Mace, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, hit him with Mace's comeback, because this shows you, no, it's on. This is, for the first time in my life, an actual civil war within the Republican Party. I want to talk to you about the consequence of that, because this isn't about Mace or Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's about the phenomenon, and why is Mace going after these radicals in her own party? It's really interesting.
So the last part of Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweet said, "You're out of your league," and there was a grammatical error there, and Mace decided to mention it in her response to Marjorie Taylor Greene with the correct grammar, "you're" with an RE at the end. And while I'm correcting you, I'm a pro-life fiscal conservative who was attacked by the left all weekend, as I often am, as I defied China while in Taiwan. What I'm not is a religious bigot or racist. You might want to try that over there in your little league. And in response, Marjorie Taylor Greene says, "You're for the spell check, please," which very clever. By the way, later Mace posted again on Twitter mocking Greene's self-congratulating tweet after she recently strong-armed House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy to kowtow the demands of her and other GOP extremists. So,
okay, okay,
yeah,
there you have it. Where Kevin McCarthy comes out in all this is actually very important. So that last tweet about Nancy Mace talking to McCarthy is very relevant. So let's break this down a little bit. First of all, I'm amused by Mace's comment that I've been attacked by the left wing this whole weekend because I defied China and Taiwan.
And I didn't even know she existed until today. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Well, that's actually part of the story.
Yeah.
I didn't know either. Right, and the idea that left wingers were like, "Did you see how she defied China? We're all in support of China. I can't believe she defied it." And while in Taiwan, what are you talking about? It's just, no one said that. Okay, I don't know a single leftist that knew you, let alone knew you were in Taiwan, let alone bravely defied China, which is like the easiest thing in the world, and we're not opposed to at all. Okay, so you can see we don't like either side here. All right, now the importance of it. Look, before they would have fake civil wars in the Republican Party, they'd have the Tea Party, and the Tea Party would say, oh no, we got to pull things more right wing. And the corporate Republicans would go, oh golly gee, you are twisting our arm. Okay, fine, even more tax cuts for the rich. What can we do? And Rachel Maddow would get on MSNBC and she'd be like, oh my God, they're having a civil war. This is gonna rip the Republican Party apart, yay, right? And that would never happen. Instead, they would move the Overton window and the politics in America would get more and more right wing. It was a fake civil war that really, really hurt the country, okay, within the GOP. Now, this one is real. They're really at each other's throats. This isn't the fake ones that we saw and reported on before. Before we showed you the quotes, we're like, they don't actually disagree. Here, they actually disagree. And they're starting to hit each other like each side's a Democrat. They're treating themselves as Democrats. Like they never do that. They usually like have a certain bounds for what they say about their own colleagues. But this Little League team, the Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boeberts of the world, they broke all the rules. In some ways, by the way, and you might be surprised at me saying this, at least in terms of etiquette, in a positive way. Because I don't know why everybody in every party has to agree. That's dumb. And what it does is it creates conformity with usually corporate culture, right? So I don't believe in the etiquette at all, and I'm glad that it's being broken on both sides. Now, the problem is then they broke it with a Jewish space laser, right? Marjorie Taylor Greene, in the past talked about how a Jewish space laser was burning up forests. She's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And okay, so that was in the past. But now, she still says crazy stuff all the time. And Boebert started talking about the Jihad Squad, referring to the Just Democrats in Congress. That's an outrageously bigoted thing to say. But no Republican usually would call out bigotry against Muslims. Republicans ate that for lunch. They love that, right? Now Mace is saying, no, you're a religious bigot and a racist. I've never seen another Republican call a fellow Republican a racist. That's an interesting development.
So what's happening here, Jim?
Okay, so here are the possibilities. Number one, the most likely is a mundane explanation. She got redistricted. Because of the census, everybody's getting redistricted in all the states. And if your district now has more Democratic voters, all of a sudden you got to go on TV and tell, and which Mace did earlier, tell Fox News one thing, oh, I don't love the vaccines, then go on CNN and go, oh, I love the vaccines, okay? Because she's trying to get appeal to both sides. If you got more Democrats in your district, you're gonna want to hit Marjorie Taylor Greene and you're gonna want to do it publicly. Okay, and so that's part of might be what's going on. Number two, the donors are sick of the Marjorie Taylor Greenes. Okay, and
they are. That is absolutely true.
Yes, and now they're sending out their henchmen, Chris Christie, Nancy Mace, and others, and saying, no, stop playing around. Treat them like Democrats. Hit them and hit them hard.
Thank God, Chris Christie and Nancy Mace will save the day.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
And of course, the last part of it is the clout. So she said, oh, it's easy to be a comedian and be racist and raise money. Why? Because she's jealous of how much money Marjorie Taylor Greene raises. I hate Marjorie Taylor Greene, but that is true. Marjorie Taylor Greene raises a tremendous amount of small dollar donor money from the base who loves her, right? And so Mace now is attacking Marjorie Taylor Greene so that we all know that she exists, because nobody even knew about her before, because a typical corporate politician who hung out in a wine cellar, gave everything to corporations, and then got reelected because the corporate media would go, oh, bipartisan, so wonderfully bipartisan.
They do love a Chambly.
You're right. So now she's coming out of the wine cellar because she realizes she needs small dollar donations too. And that's why she's in a clout war now. So the clout wars are real, and on the right wing side, and the donors are mad, and there's redistricting. So you're gonna get a lot more of Republican on Republican crime.
Let them fight.
Let them fight. Let them fight. This is a real fight, and it's good for the country. All right, guys, what's good for the country is also ask us anything. That's what the members, tyt.com/join or hit the join button below on YouTube. Come and ask us anything right now.